In the CEF video, the one kid gave testimony, and the words he used I just loved. He said, if you believe in Christ, God will accept you, is how he worded it. And I thought, how perfect is that? Oftentimes we reverse that and say we need to accept Jesus, and that's just not what needs to happen. We need him to accept us. So I latched onto that, and I just wanted to say that again to remind us that that's the message we should be sharing. Believe in Jesus so that God will accept you. Hey, most of you know me, and my wife Heather, who's not coming up here, and our boys Brendan and Griffin, and our girls Charlotte, Amelie, and Felicity. They ran downstairs. Like I said this morning with the men, I just focused on the word home. It's good to be home. It's good to be here in this area, in this building, in these pews with you people. You are our people. And so we say thank you, and it's good to be here. But I know there are a few faces out there that are unfamiliar to me. So that's the introduction on us. Here's where we live currently. So obviously you can see Michigan, and now we live in Papua New Guinea. And we live in the town of Wewak on the north west coast of the island there. We work with, and I know we're familiar with this in this room, but we work with an agency called New Tribes Mission, or now Ethnos 360. And it's still called New Tribes over in Papua New Guinea. And just by way of reminder, as it's good to go back and remember these things, New Tribes was started by a few individuals back in the 40s who really had this vision for where the church wasn't going. That's really kind of the name, New Tribes. It's where it came from. It's like, okay, there's all these great ministries, but then we've kind of found these little pockets of people that are what we used to say is unreached or isolated. Whether it's because nobody from the outside has ever gone in there, they don't have roads out, whatever it may be. And so this group of people got really passionate about that, kind of based off of what Paul wrote in Romans 15. And thus I aspired to preach the gospel not where Christ was already named, so that I would not build on another man's foundation. But as it is written, they who had no news of him shall see, and they who have not heard shall understand. And back in 2005, Heather and I were married for just over a year. We left California and moved here to Jackson, Michigan, to attend New Tribes Bible Institute. And we knew what a Bible Institute was. We had no idea what a New Tribes was. And so it took a little bit for us to learn what it was. And it really was a shocker to us. Semester starts late August or so. And it's about October, we go back to our apartment after classes one day, and I just remember our conversation went something like this. Why do these people keep talking about missions? And it was like, where did we come to? We're like trying to figure this thing out. Every opportunity in class, our teachers were making missions applications. Every chapel was some missionary who was on furlough with some missions challenge. Our classmates were constantly, well, the ones that kind of knew what was going on, and they were there specifically for missions training. We were there for Bible training. That was it. And so we had a number of classmates constantly asking us, what country are you going to go to? And we probably looked at them pretty dumb and paused and said, California? Like, which now California is the only country you can go to that doesn't require a passport. So yeah, over the course of 2 years of studying the Bible, we were opened up to this idea, and really because it's God's heartbeat. And so he kind of redirected what we had planned, what we thought, through some faithful men and women there at the Bible school, through his word, and just convincing us, hey, I think this is what we can kind of give our lives to and jump into. And so we graduated the Bible school, went into missions training down in Missouri for a year. We got an invite from the Bible school leadership, and that brought us back up here after raising support. So we moved back, and then shortly after moving back, we ended up here at Skiff Lake, and we were here for nearly a decade and loved it. And so like I said this morning to the men, it's good to be home. I think the last time we were here, or at least when we moved from Michigan, was August 2017. And then we had a stopover with some more missions training and then more support raising back in California, and then been over in Papua New Guinea for the last little over 3.5 years. And we joined this idea that you see there, the idea that New Tribes had, which is tribal church planting. And so what that looks like, and you guys are familiar with the Omdu Church, Bart and Emily Allen. Skiff has supported them for a number of years, and so we work in their region. We're co-workers with them. Who you see on the screen there is their co-worker in the bush, Benjamin Hatton, who are also here in Jackson at this time on furlough, Benjamin and Missy Hatton. And their church in Omdu, if you're not aware, was born spring of 2020. And I highlight that because there was a lot of stuff going on in the world in spring of 2020. And it's been mentioned, and we all have our stories of what life was like wherever we were in the world and how things are going, and even just talking to some of you today and knowing that we're like Facebook live streaming because of spring of 2020. And so these things were happening where the world was closing down because of COVID. And right there in a tucked away pocket of the jungle of Papua New Guinea, the Holy Spirit was opening up. He was doing the exact opposite. And that's after years and years of hard work by the Allens and the Hattons of just plugging away at culture and language and building relationships and Bible teaching and going through the whole thing. The church was born. And so that's the aim of New Tribes, and I'll tell how we fit in here in a minute. But I just thought we'd watch some testimonies from some of the Omdu believers.
Jonathan balong nang tunong baptize kimaya Jesus ang mitilang tilaya imibugoyin sa kabugoyan lom daya ibyo Jesus boda mi olti sip manam katalayo olti sip manam katalaga yamin atam niyo insa kami okok dasa kabegani atat balong mu ulum alit min ga kukantiyo atunum nam katalayo kalakan mo ila John kanta mo hindi bagay bisa ka numudugoyo ko ne sa asbal numudugoyo ko ne kate numudugoyo ko kali no impal si funan nugol ti asbal nugol ti funan dalu fanti Jesus katla ulum de panti yeserela Jesus mi funan ko dalu pa tinugol ti dugoyo ya wanda ami funan de kami pita ka Jesus pita ka imi ulum de panti lingem ita ko bibulo Jeda opa bui unang kembal. Kubuk tembal no le triya kemin kan ni no kala mi ulum ka kan ti sayo kembal. Tifan ku ulum so kon unang he.
Ulum so kon unang. Ulum dinim dati ulum so kon unang.
Kok mi ulum kulusa kami minta ta bakon.
Mi ulum kulusa sigari amot mateo.
Tifan. Ulum ka be kami chin ka.
Katanyam, Adam so is no Katanyam Trendas.
Kemin kami bukan cilin kata.
Kami bukan cilin kami. Yes, kami tahan siapa. Tifano kalau kau kata, yang yes kami berpoten seperti kita.
If masuk bombe ye, saya.
Sati Yesus santo ko. Ibalewle ti Yesus santo.
I love how the dog and the pig don't bother them one bit. But the way she's talking about the Lord, you see her eyes light up. I think maybe we all reacted more than they did to the dog and the pig going there. But those are our brothers and sisters in Omdu. And I just want to show this picture again. So just keep your eyes on, there's a guitar there towards the front of their meeting house. And then also you see that blackboard or that chalkboard. And I'll come back to that in a minute. Okay, so what do we do there? In WEWAC, we serve in what's called supply ministry. We're in the Sepik region. There's a main river there. It's kind of like their version of the Mississippi. And so we call it the Sepik region. And so we work in Sepik supply. And a really good illustration for what the Lord led us into and put us in this ministry comes from Exodus 17. And that's when Israel is battling the Amalekites. And as Moses' hands are up holding the staff, Israel is winning the battle. But as he gets tired and starts to fall, then the Amalekites start to progress forward and win the battle. So Aaron and Hur sit him on a stone and then support him from the side and keep his hands up so they can win the battle. And so I think that's a really good illustration as to what the ministry is that the Lord gave us. So there you have the Hattons and the Allens in the bush, working with the Omdu, people presenting the gospel, discipling this now 2-year-old baby church. And we're on one side, holding up one arm, keeping them going. Maybe Aaron, and I would look at you guys as our church back here, supporting us, supporting them with us. So you guys are her on the other side, holding up that arm. And I think it works really well in this illustration specifically that it's the Allens that we would be talking about, that we're connected here through Skiff Lake. So that kind of gives us a good picture as to what supply ministry is, but what does that actually look like? Great question. Thank you for asking. So a day in the life of Sepik Supply looks a little like this. It doesn't normally happen that fast. It happens a lot slower. PNG culture is very, very island culture, very slow, and can be quite frustrating sometimes because I want to get the job done. I wish it would happen that fast. But yeah, through a series of events, as we were heading over, we made sure we got all the missions, church planting training we could get that New Tribes had to offer. And we weren't quite sure what the Lord was going to lead us into, but we just set our eyes on Him, and we just said, you know what, let's keep moving towards church planting and see what He does. And really, I think there's a passage, I'm blanking on the reference right now, but it's in Deuteronomy. It might be like chapter 30. And it's actually the message I shared with you all when we left. And it's Moses saying to the Israelites and Joshua, as he's kind of handing over the reins to Joshua, and they're about to go into the promised land. And he tells them words like this. He says, "Don't be afraid. The Lord your God will go before you." And so we really stepped out of here believing that and just knowing, hey, every step of the way, God's going before us, and we're asking Him to go before us and direct us and guide us, and He was faithful to do that. And so as we had our eyes set on church planting, through a series of events and circumstances and different things, He led us to this ministry in CPIC Supply, where that's what my kind of daily life looks like. I'm in town, that's the town of Wewak. I am receiving a supply order from, the Allens who are out in the bush. They're an hour-and-a-half plane flight away. There's no other way for them to get out. And so they email me their shopping list. I compile it, and I go hunting. I search through town, through market, through whatever, to try to find anything and everything that's on their list. Sometimes making judgment calls. Is this a good substitute? I know they asked for this one, but, okay, I'll tell you specifically about the Omdu. Okay, specifically about Benjamin and Bart. They want these axe heads that come from Sweden. Only one hardware store in our town out of, I think, 4 hardware stores sells them. They're blue, and they make a 2-inch, a 2.5-inch, and a 3-inch. They want Swedish axe heads, 2.5-inch, that's it. Nothing else. And they are rarely in stock. Me there with the Omdu people, and I'm like, guys, can you just take the green one that's made in China? Like, those are in every store. This would make my life easier. So that's a little info there on the Allens. It's not just me. It is a family ministry, and this is something that we saw the Lord go before us. As you see pictures there. So kind of the way we divide it up is I do kind of the bulk of the work in town and shopping and filling the order and packing the boxes. And then I have the absolute privilege of coming back to our base into the office and just dumping all the receipts. For my beautiful wife, who God has blessed her with a numbers, math mind, for her to take it and make sure all the right missionary accounts get charged. Our kids jump in, as you see in the picture there, along with some of our coworkers' kids. I'll usually send a text on my way back. Hey, I'm coming from the airport, just picked a load up that came from our main base. Or I'm coming from town, I've got a van full. And homeschool gets stopped, kids come down, help unload, unpack, and it's kind of our stock room of supplies there. So it really is a family ministry. It's something that the Lord just kind of put in our laps, and we're built for. He's given me a Tetris mind, so be able to pack the boxes and load the plane. It's a blessing to be used how you're gifted, to say the least. I said keep an eye on that guitar and that blackboard that was in the picture before of the Omdu church, just to highlight, like I bought those things. So I'm just trying to connect the dots. Like that guitar I went and bought in town, black chalkboard paint is what we call it. And most of our tribal works use that to create a chalkboard teaching device. So it's just those types of things to benefit and work as a team with our bush missionaries and see the end goal of those isolated church plants take place realizing, hey, Moses needed help, right? He was getting tired, so he needs a coworker and he needs a supporting church to keep those hands up, to keep this thing going. And that's really how I see it. We're in this together, and this is what the Lord has given us, Skiff Lake, together to do. Just one little arm of what Skiff Lake does, as we've been hearing from those that have spoken before me this evening. Just to give further detail on our ministry, so there's the map again. We live in the town of Wewak. Currently, we are supply buying for 5 active works. And what I mean by active is missionaries are there on the ground in location. So we have some what we call phased out works where we would kind of consider it a completed church plant. It's been handed off to the people, and so missionaries are either out on base, still just working on translation, living itinerant, or they've moved back to the States to another ministry and then maybe come back over, once every year, once every 2 years for just further discipleship or pastors' conferences type of idea. So in those 5 active works, we have 14 different families. So that's a beauty of my job. I get to shop for 14 different ladies. Make that 15. Numero uno there, and then 14 after that. So those are some of the challenges we face. You were talking about challenges in ministry. That's some of the challenges I face in ministry. And my wife has rescued me. There was was it diapers or baby wipes issue with one of our church planting partners in the tribe, a younger family, and it was like, the way it was worded, it was like 5 boxes, one box of baby wipes. And so I got a box of baby wipes. Thankfully, there was enough time before the plane came, and we were sending them out. She was like, I don't think that's what she means. I think she means like, one of these things that has like 50 of those things inside of it. So we double checked, and yes, she was correct. And then we have, currently on the ground in Wewak, we have 5 new families that all arrived to the field within the last 2 years. They've all finished Pidgin study, national culture and language study, and they're just in the process of doing surveys. So that's 5 new families to our area that are all going church planting. They're trying to form a team and open up some new work. So hopefully when we return next year, we'll be a part of helping at least one new team move into a new location. So that way they can start the long, hard process of tribal culture and language learning, and then within the next, who knows how many years, get to a place where they're opening up the scriptures for the first time for those people. I feel like I've been racing, so let me just slow down, catch my thought. It wasn't anything that we expected to go into. There it is. It came back to me. I was impressed by Paul in Acts about almost a year ago when we were reading through Acts, and we get to the portion where he finishes his first missionary journey and gets back to Antioch. And it's really not, it's not a ton of information there. It just says that him and Barnabas came back and they reported all that God had done. And then it's like the story moves on. And so we really just kind of wanted that to be our aim on this furlough. And really that was kind of our objective even this evening and tomorrow, and just as we're here for the whole month of October. So even as we interact, we just want to be able to say, hey, this is what God's been doing. And so with this picture in mind, that's what I want to do. So we'll just go by number order. So in Amdu, the church was born in 2020. In number 2, and so they have baby believers 2 years old that Bart and Emily are out there discipling. Number 2, Wabaku, church was born back in the early 2000s, and they've just had a rough situation with different missionaries in and out. The current missionaries that are in there should be finishing and checking out of language, I think after about 5 years. And so they've been in there 5 years, knowing that some of my language helpers are believers, but that's it. Like they've heard the gospel and believe, and they desperately need discipleship. And so he's been working hard to finish, and it looks like hopefully before the end of this year, he's going to check out and be able to transition into ministry to disciple these believers that have been floundering since the early 2000s. Number 3, that one's on the same timeline. That's Pei, and they're on the same timeline as Omdu. The church was born in 2020 after 10 long, hard years of culture and language learning. And that's a 15-member church out of a 300-member people group. So a tough work there. I'll skip to number 5, Yambai Talk. The 3 families that are in there, they've been in there for about 2.5 years, and they're probably going to be in there for about another 3 years before they check out of language. So they're just in the thick of it, learning language and culture, building friendships, and it's going to be a while. And so we've had the privilege of supporting them and keeping them going. And then 4, if you receive our email updates, we've been trying to highlight the Malayali because they just started the Bible teaching. I think they would have finished up week 5 as of today. Would have finished up week 5. And so the Malayali people are just giving great testimony about the things they are hearing and understanding as their current worldview is crashing into a biblical worldview. And they're saying, there was a video that one of the missionaries posted the other day where one of the guys is just saying, the missionary's name is Chad, and so he says, Chad, I always thought we had 3 souls, and at least one of them would be good and make it to heaven. And because that's what his parents and ancestors have always told him. But now, and then he gave clear testimony saying, but now after today's lesson, I'm hearing, I've got 1 soul, and I'm not standing on the right side with God. And so it's getting there, and Heather, when should they be moving towards Gospel Day? Okay, so end of November of this year. So while you're out in the tree stand, be praying for Malayali right in the thick of deer season. They're going to be hearing the gospel for the first time. So we have the privilege of serving along all of these church plants in our area. And I think you guys have the privilege of that too. Thank you for supporting us. That's what the Lord's been doing. Some pigeon here. Inup yupla baitin long mipla. Just asking continued prayers. If you started attending Skiff Lake within the past 4 years, then let me just give a quick introduction of myself. My name is Brandon Young, and I'll show a picture of my family, but some of them are sitting right back here. My wife Heather and our 2 boys and our girls ran downstairs for the children's program. That's not working, is it? We've been members here at Skiff for many, many years. We attended for nearly a decade before the Lord moved us and we headed overseas. There we go. And majority of our time here, I had the privilege of serving in the music ministry here on this stage, so I find it hard to stand up here and not lead a song. So let's stand together. And the lyrics of this song, no, seriously, let's stand together. I'll teach it to you. It's a simple song. The lyrics of it come from Lamentations 3:22 through 23. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. New every morning, great is your faithfulness, O Lord. Great is your faithfulness. I didn't even have to teach it. One time's good enough. You knew it. Thank you. You may be seated. So good to be here with you. So there's a picture of our family. We serve with New Tribes Mission, Papua New Guinea, known now here in the States as Ethnos 360. For our many years here in Jackson, we also served on staff at New Tribes Bible Institute, which recently, I think within the last 2 years, 3 years, closed down and merged with the sister school in Wisconsin. So what that shows is we left probably a year and a half before that. They just couldn't handle it. We were gone. They had to close the doors. So that's why we're here. So now the Lord has moved us from Michigan, most recently to Papua New Guinea. So that's a map there to help get our bearings as to what we're talking about. We serve in a town called Wewak. And what we do there in that kind of green province area that you see on the screen, it's called the Sepik, East Sepik area. And we have the privilege of serving as supply buyers. And it's a supply buying ministry, and what we do is support bush missionaries. So we currently serve 14 different families that serve in 5 active church plant works. And these are remote, isolated locations in the jungles of Papua New Guinea. And so what we do as a family is we receive their shopping list. I go to town in Wewak and I try to fill that order. I pack boxes. The whole family gets in on the act. The kids help me unload and load the van. Sometimes they're with me down at the airport to meet our mission plane, to load the plane, to send all the supplies out to the missionaries. And then my wife does all the office work and handles the paperwork and makes sure each account gets charged appropriately. And so that's what the Lord led us into, as a support ministry. And I said this last night as well, but one of which is the Omdu work, where Bart and Emily Allen have been church planting for a number of years. So we get to work side by side with them and attempt to fill their grocery order. And so it's a privilege. One thing I forgot to say last night, I did mention that we currently have 5 new families in Wewak, new church planting families that are looking to open up new works in our area into a new people group, a new language group. One of those families is Jacob and Karis Dorr. Karis Smith, daughter of Gary and Esther Smith. So there's a connection there, again, here to the Skiff Lake family and the ministry that takes place around the world. So that's an introduction on us. We work with New Tribes Mission. We served on staff here in Jackson at New Tribes Bible Institute for nearly a decade. And then the Lord did some things in our lives to shift our ministry within the mission. And we set our sights on Papua New Guinea. And so basically in our time, in the next 12 minutes or so, I just want to share some testimonies, show some faces of some of our PNG friends, and just kind of talk through our experience and our relationship with them, and just some things the Lord has done. So when we first arrived in Papua New Guinea, we spent our first 7 months at our main base up in the Highlands Mountain area in the middle of the country. And we were just on a mission base with other missionaries, and our focus was to teach high school Bible to our missionary kids. And I also had the chance to coach the high school basketball team. So we didn't really jump into culture and language learning. We knew that was just a short stint. It was just the way the timing worked out. We were ready to go, but they weren't ready for us to be there to start the culture language learning process. So we just begged them. We were like, hey, can we just come? Can you put us to work somehow? And so that's what they did. And it was a good time for us to meet many of our field-wide co-workers, which we probably wouldn't have had the chance to rub shoulders with and build relationships with, and learn who to complain about when things don't go the way we want. I'm just being serious. After that, we moved from the mountains to this coastal town, if you can see it on the screen there, called Madang. And that's where we do our church planting orientation. So all new missionaries coming over that are going, kind of have their eyes set on church planting, move to Madang to work through culture and language. And so that's where we were, and we spent, I want to say this would be 2019, August, all the way in through to like March or May of 2020. We were in Madang, filling a couple different roles, but mainly our focus was culture and language. And so that was our 40 hours. It was to get out of the house, off the mission base, into the local community, and just figure out how life works there. And you can learn Pidgin, talk Pidgin, by reading books. The Bible is printed in Pidgin. There are classes that teach people just like you would take a Spanish class or a French class or whatever. But our aim here was to do it as if we were doing it in a tribal setting. And that's on purpose, to kind of practice and figure out how each individual learns and how each individual missionary will then process the information they're getting. So it's a lot of just pointing at things. What is this? Okay, first of all, you have to figure out M1'em. You have to figure out how to say, what is this, right? So you get that, and then you're just using it. And then you got your recorder ready, and you're just trying to collect nouns and moving through. So that was our 40 hours for about 5 months. Just focus on that, and then moving up from nouns to sentence structure, to questions, to dialogue, and moving through. So that was our time in Madang. And here's where I want to highlight is some of the people. So you see my wife Heather, our daughter Felicity. No, her leg's not broken. She doesn't have a cast on. It's just a water bottle and a weird picture. Everyone we've shown the picture to has said, like, what happened to her leg? It's just the way the picture happened. So to start, we moved to Madang. When we get off of our mission plane, we're pulling all of our stuff out, and we're getting picked up by some veteran missionaries who are running our orientation program, and off comes my guitar. So that triggers a thought with them, oh, he plays guitar. Well, we have a small group of people, we're not sure if they're believers or not, but they had just recently been excommunicated or kicked out of a church for legalistic reasons, and it was not a good thing. So now this veteran missionary couple has 3 or 4 families that are meeting for Bible study, and one of the guys is leading music, and so they invite me, hey, would you show up? I think we flew down there on like a Wednesday. They were meeting Thursday for music practice, and I was gung-ho, right? You're fresh off the boat, and you're ready to go and jump in and do anything. So I was like, yeah, I'll show up, play my guitar, and do this thing. And so that ushered us into this small group of people from this community, one of which was Rita. And so what I want to story about Rita that you see in the picture in the middle there, and her daughter Michaeline to the right. Rita was attending. We're not sure if at this time she was a believer, definitely later became a believer. Rita was attending this small group just with her kids. And one day, or one of our Sunday meetings, she was just offering up the fact that she needed prayer. Her husband, Michael, just did not want to come to church, had all kinds of issues with the church, didn't want anything to do with it. So would you pray? And so we were there with some other new orientees, so we just started to pray. And we just had the opportunity to build a friendship with her, along with some of our coworkers at the time, just reach into their lives. And really, we reached in by becoming learners. So we had opportunities where Heather would be with Rita. What is this? What is that? Okay, something just happened in the community. There was a big commotion, and now a chicken went running this way. Bush knives are going that way. People are yelling and screaming. What is all that about? And we just became learners. And it just built a relationship, built a friendship. Same thing for my coworker and Rita's husband. They bonded, built a friendship. I got to know Michael as well, and so we kind of had this opportunity to just spend time with them and get to know what their life is like. And just us doing that, like I said in the Sunday service, we were just letting our light shine, and it drew Michael in. Not sure if he was a believer at the time. He's definitely a believer now. And he's been a part of the local fellowship, the local church there. And we didn't preach sermons. We didn't teach. We couldn't communicate well enough at the time. Our veteran coworker was doing that, but just the opportunity of building friendships and bringing them in. Another couple in that family. So there's Michael. There's Rita's husband, Michael. That's the veteran coworker, Bill, on the right. And then another family in the community, Rocky. He's like the P&G me. It's just amazing how God works this out. And Heather and his wife, Ruth, joke about it, that we're like the same person from different continents. And so he's the one strumming a guitar. Kind of think he was a believer already at the time, but just real kind of baby believer, had some legalistic thinking in his mind, just unclear on biblical foundations, and he became my main language helper. And so he's the one that I just learned everything I could from. Heather spent a lot of time with his wife, Ruth, just learning. They have a daughter, Jen, who matched up in age with our girls, and they just became some of the best friends, and our girls learned from her as well. And again, it was just, Rocky's here, he's a P&G guy. I stepped under just to say, hey, teach me. How can I learn from you? And that drew him more and more to what we were doing, and then allowed him to sit under Bill and be discipled in the Word. As I learned from him, it drew him in to a place where he could then hear from the Word and grow. This is Rocky today. Okay, so that was back in 2019 that all of this happened. And probably about a year later, just conversation after conversation, discipleship, challenging, nudging from both myself and Bill. Once I was fluent in the language, able to get him to a place, and he's a gifted communicator. And it was really cool to see because he and I led the music together at this little church fellowship. We moved away to our current ministry and location in Weewak, and then we would go back and visit about every 6 months. We make a trip over there, but we keep in contact with Bill and his wife Kelly, and they give us updates as what's going on with the little church there. Well, he then passed off his guitar to his niece and to another young man, a teenager in the community, and started to show them, hey, this is how you lead the service. So he was then beginning to disciple others. As he did that, Bill and I were challenging him and helping him learn how to put thoughts and teaching material at the little church fellowship there. So just amazing to see what just building a friendship with someone does, and then being willing to take that friendship a step further and ask the questions, hey, you believing in Jesus? How's your walk with God? Oh yeah, let's figure out what your giftings are. How do you fit into this thing? Are you serving him? And let's try it. And we did the same thing with Michael. He taught, and we just found out he's not a teacher. As there might be some up here. And it's just like, okay, that's not where it's at. And so we discipled him, and he's just a servant. He just loves to work and serve and be a part of the community. And so just really cool things. So the Lord moved us from there. We weren't able to stay in Madang long term. He opened up the door for us to join, like I said earlier, a CPIC supply ministry in Weewak. That's the map there, the 5 different works that we are a part of, 14 different missionary families serving among these people groups. I showed this last night, but I want to show it again, just because I know not everybody was there. This is a day in the life of CPIC Supply, so looking through my eyes in the town of Weewak. There is sound there, but if it doesn't show up, no big deal. two clips in there. One, you see me loading and unloading a bunch of cargo, and that's why you see in the bulletin and the prayer request for missionaries for my back. So appreciate you praying for that and keep praying for that. I try to get help when I can, and like I said last night, it's a family ministry. The kids get in on it, and they help with a lot of the loading. And then another one, when I was unloading the plywood from the back of the van, you saw another gentleman in there. His name is Max. He's one of our base employees who's been working for our base, and he kind of takes care of our grounds, pushing a lawnmower. And this is the story I want to end on, just sharing about Max. In the clip in the video, he was helping me, and we're moving pretty quick, not just video technology, but in life we're moving pretty quick because he still had two hands, two arms at the time that he was helping me unload that. So what's the story behind that? So with our base employees, every Monday we offer a Bible study. We have 4 guys that show up routinely. At this time, we're confirmed all are believers. If they're not believers, we invite all of our employees, and really what we do is we say from 1 to 2:30 every Monday, you can clock in. You'll get paid for it. You don't have to work. We're having a Bible study. And it's a pretty neat opportunity that the Lord has allowed us as a mission to do so. And some choose to come, and some choose to clock in and take a nap. But Max is one of these guys that he comes faithfully, and I think we're coming up on maybe 3 years ago, he got saved through the ministry of this Bible study. One of my coworkers before just spent the time going through chronologically with these guys just to see where they're at. Another guy, Willie's been working for us for about 18 years, and so he's rubbed shoulders with a lot of missionaries on the base over the years. And he just got saved as well about the same time Max did. So the Lord just aligned it at the right time to where our coworker was able to teach chronologically through the scriptures, the Bible foundation teaching, and these guys got saved. We moved to WEWAC. I jump into this Bible study, and the Lord has me in a position where it's like taking them from newly saved into the Christian life and discipleship. So that's been my ministry with these guys. We were studying the book of John about 2 years ago now. And on Monday, this particular Monday, we did John 11, which is the story of Lazarus. Okay, and so there's some phrases in that passage where Lazarus dies, the word gets to Jesus, the disciples are like, Lord, if we would have just gone, he wouldn't have been dead. Like, they're trusting and knowing you could have healed him, all of this. And Jesus responds by saying, this didn't happen for nothing. This happened for the glory of God. So indicating that God and Jesus knew this was going to happen, this traumatic thing, this terrifying, horrible thing in the life of Lazarus and his family and friends, but he also planned it for his purposes. He had a purpose in mind and for his glory. So we're working through that passage. I'm making these points and driving them home with the guys. This happens on Monday. Wednesday, Max climbs up on a ladder to trim a tree. Doesn't really know what he's doing. Kind of afraid of heights, but just trying to be faithful to go do it. And this is a massive, massive tree. And so we're talking, he's trimming I want to say hand, what's it called? Heather, help me. A branch. Sorry, I could only think in pidgin as to what you call it. It's a branch that's about this big around, and it's hanging over our security fence, which is corrugated 10 cut with jags on the top. Branch coming over here, ladder going up this way, right over the top of it. He ties the ladder to the top, gets up there and starts cutting. Well, when all that weight lets loose, the whole thing comes up. The rest of the branch that's attached to the tree comes up, bucks him off the ladder. He falls and is able to have the wherewithal to spin his body around, hits the fence about here, and just shreds his entire arm from the bicep on up. He nearly died, and we thought he was going to die. So by the time we get word, he's on the outside of the fence. It took a bit. It took some time for us to get the gate open, get to him, get him in the van, try to get him down to the local hospital. The best they can do with their medical situation is just amputate, just take off the arm. We're giving him morphine, and the doctor's just saying, hey, this is what we can do or he's going to die. So his brother had to make the choice of to cut off his arm or not. So his brother is the one that signed off on it. Couple days later, he comes to and regains consciousness, and he's alive, and he's, now dealing with the shock of not having an arm. So Monday is Bible study. Wednesday, Max has his accident. I think Friday he wakes up. Sometime Friday night, Saturday over the weekend, his family comes to him. And you have to understand, in the P&G mindset, there's this underlying thinking that these things don't just happen. Okay, there's this almost kind of karma idea. So there's a couple different things happening. So his family comes to him and says, hey, you've done something. You've done something to offend the spirits, and now this is your punishment. So you need to figure out what you've done and make it right. That's one aspect in which they're coming to him to comfort him, I guess, in their minds. The other side is somebody's worked magic upon you. Somebody's done this to you, so now you need to figure out who did it and work revenge towards them. That's the underlying thinking in the P&G mindset. So awesome to hear Max sit up. We're fairly certain he's the only believer in his family. And he says, no, not at all. I don't know why this happened to me, but God has a purpose in it, and he's planned it for his glory. So whatever the purpose is, it's not even my business to figure out. But I know I didn't do anything wrong that deserved this. And I know nobody worked magic on me, because that's not, God's in control. And he was quoting right back to John 11. And so we were just thrilled to hear him say that. He was very fearful he was going to lose his job, because in our context there in P&G, this is what happens to a lot of people with accidents like this and bush knife accidents. They're out of work. And we were able to reassure him that, hey, we're not done with you. You have your employment, and we'll figure out how to make this work. And so for months, he would show up with he would just get these little garden clippers. No arm over here, and he would just go around cutting what he could and moving what he could. And even when I pulled the van in with plywood, he's still like, trying to do this thing and help me, and just a happy servant of the Lord Jesus. So I want to show this. We were able to work out a situation with another mission, and an orthopedic, that's not the right word, prosthetic doctor that got him a prosthetic arm to help him get back to work a little better. So this is him pushing the mower there. I'll get out of the way. I'm just going to play it again so you can see the smile. And that's Max, and he's just got a big, happy, heartwarming smile every day of his life, before and after the accident. This is the character of this guy, working hard, but just blessed to be there for a certain time, to be able to pour into his life, and a guy who lives in a very rough and tough situation, and he just loves coming to work, because that's where he gets to be with fellow believers. So I'll end it on that.